Hello, everyone. This is Scott Bissell from the Center for Faculty Excellence, and welcome to today's webinar. This is Enhancing Student Engagement by Practicing Self-Care, and it's going to be led by two of our core faculty members in the MS in Mental Health Counseling program, Dr. Ruth Moore and Dr. Nina Spadero. Nina and Ruth, you want to say a quick hello?
Hello, everyone. This is Ruth Moore, and I just want to thank you all for attending today, especially on a Friday late in the afternoon. But I hope that we can give you some tips and pointers to help you have a positive and carefree weekend.
Absolutely. This is Nina Spadero. Thanks, everybody, for joining. I'm actually surprised at how many people have showed up on a Friday afternoon. I want to warn you, or maybe it's alert you, to the fact that you're going to be participating. You're not just going to be sitting still throughout this whole thing. So get ready to have a little bit of fun.
Great. Well, thank you, Nina and Ruth. For those of you who may not know, this is one of the sessions that we offered at the recent faculty meeting, and we offer the sessions that are available as breakout sessions in the faculty meetings as webinars throughout the fall. So keep your eye open for our weekly professional development email, as well as our monthly newsletter that has all the webinar times and how to register for those sessions that are being offered as webinars. Before I turn things over to Ruth and Nina, I just want to do a quick overview of how to use GoToWebinar to make sure you're able to fully participate, because we want this to be an engaging and interactive experience today. First thing you want to do is, if your control panel is showed as minimized view, like I'm showing it on my screen on the left, all you have to do to get the control panel back to you so you can use all the features of GoToWebinar is just click the arrow that I have boxed in red, and once you do that, the control panel will go from minimized view to maximized view, which is what I'm showing on the screen now. A couple things you may want to do to make sure that your system is completely ready to go with working with GoToWebinar so you can fully participate. First of all, click the audio setup link. This will allow you to test your speakers and microphone. When the system asks you to test your microphone, don't worry about us hearing you in the room. It will just go through the system and not be broadcast out, so we will not hear your audio test that you're conducting. There are a couple ways you can participate, and Nina and Ruth will be asking for your ideas and questions. And the first way to do that is through the questions box via text. So just put the information in the bottom of the questions area where you see enter a question for staff, click send, and that will come to us. And if it's idea sharing, we'll read those off for the group, and if it's a question, we'll address that at the next opportunity we pause for questions. Other way you can participate when you ask questions, if you want to participate verbally, is click the raise hand button, and that'll let us know that you're raising your hand as you might do in a face-to-face setting, and we will unmute your microphone so you can use your computer microphone or your phone, whichever way you're joining us today, to share verbally. I have placed everyone's microphone on mute just to cut down on any background noise so that you can clearly hear Nina and Ruth as they walk us through the presentation today. We do have closed captioning available, and that's going to be the link. I will pop that into the questions area in just a moment. So if you want to hear or read what's being said, you can do that in the questions area by clicking the link. Also, just a little further up here, if you have any technical support difficulties, please call the number you see on the screen. The go-to technical support team is available to help you, and it is live technical support. Also, at the end of the session, I will put an evaluation link in the questions area to get your feedback on today's session. So as I turn things over to Ruth, give me just a moment, and I will put the closed captioning link into the questions area, but I'm actually going to turn things over now to Dr. Ruth Moore, who will start us off. Ruth, go ahead and share your screen whenever you're ready.
Okay. All right. Again, I'd like to welcome you all and thank you for coming. And as Scott mentioned, we are going to be talking about practicing self-care. And Scott mentioned that I'm a core faculty member with the Masters of Mental Health Counseling program, but I've also been a fitness instructor for about 20 years, and so I teach Pilates and a lot of different forms of fitness. And so one of the areas where I'm most passionate is in looking at wellness and kind of bridging the gap between counseling, wellness, and exercise. And so hopefully today we can I can share some of my knowledge and experiences, and Nina will do so as well, and that we can give you some helpful tips that you might be able to implement on a daily basis when you're engaging in online instruction. So, Nina, did you want to add?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to say not only am I a counseling psychologist, but I'm also a martial artist. And so in my life, working out has been integrated throughout. And I'm aware of the fact that many of you who have joined us today may also have expertise in any of the three areas that we are going to be talking about: yoga, Tai Chi, and Pilates. And I just wanted to say we're just excited about doing these things and have found the benefits, not trying to say that we are the be-all and end-all and know-all about everything to do with Pilates, Tai Chi, and yoga. So we also hope to maybe hear back from some of you throughout this seminar. Thanks.
I'm going to go over the learning objectives, but I also wanted to mention that it's interesting that the way Nina and I came about doing this presentation was that when we were attending academic residencies, Nina and her partner, who you'll see on one of the videos, were doing yoga in the mornings, and it became that several other faculty members asked if they could join, and I started joining in, and I said, hey, I teach Pilates, and so we started doing a little blend of Tai Chi, yoga, and Pilates, and what we found was that those faculty members who participated not only reported that they felt less stressed during the day, and at the end of the day they felt like they were more relaxed, but then also there was a sense of cohesion among the group. So we really wanted to bring this to a faculty meeting, and that's kind of what we did. So we, like Nina said, we are very, very excited about the opportunity just to share what we've done with this. So in terms of learning objectives, we are going to look at how the anxiety, anger, and depression that we might feel as an educator, how that can interfere with our sense of self-efficacy and our ability to engage with students. We're going to look at the role of self-care in fostering self-efficacy and how to use self-care as a way to make us more engaging with our students. And we will actually experience some yoga, Pilates, and Tai Chi exercises.
Okay. So I want to address a little bit of the experience that each of us has with regard to challenges being an online educator. And so best way to do that is to actually bring this home. So I'd like to ask each of you to think about some challenges for you in this online environment. And if you would, we'd really appreciate it if you'd write them in the Ask Question area, and we'll talk about some of these. So I'll play a little bit of dum bum 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 while you're writing in your particular challenges that you find. Usually when people do this, they do find that there's a lot of commonalities. So Amy's talking about sitting all day. Anne brings up that there's physical issues like eye strain, bad posture from sitting at the computer all day. And then on top of that, that difficult balance between work and life and being able to shut the computer off at the end of the day. And Kayla's talking about tension from sitting, carpal tunnel, which is an overuse syndrome, and eye strain. So you're seeing some definite things, the same thing. Kevin's talking about feeling disconnected. And that could probably happen with the people that are living in your house with you because you learn to turn your mind off, and frustration with that written versus verbal interaction and communication with people. Really appreciate that people are writing in. Let's see, I think I see another. Again, connectivity, eye strain, distractions at home, and the frustration of dealing with all of that. That was from David. Thank you all. So now that I've brought this to your mind, this was a psychological trick, I would like you to, on this next slide, consider when a student writes to you, when they're writing something and it's just words on an email, for instance, the ones right in front of you, instructor, did you grade my paper, which I've read very evenly. How do you interpret that when you're sitting there frustrated, people are around you, your eyes are hurting, your back is hurting, you've been sitting in front of that computer all day, and you feel rather like people are not appreciating you or even know who you are, you can read those words in several different ways. One is, "Instructor, did you grade my paper?" which is really a demand of somebody on your time. Or, "Instructor, did you grade my paper?" In other words, have you done it yet? You better do it now. Or even the anxiety of, "Instructor, did you grade my paper?" And you think, "Wow, this person's whining at me." You could read it any number of ways. You can interpret those simple 5 words so many different ways. And as Anais Nin said, we don't see the world as it is, but as we see it. And so we're in danger of not being engaged at this point. Ruth, do you want to talk a little bit about this?
Sure. So in looking at student engagement and retention, there's a lot of research out there about how distance learners really need their faculty members to be present, and that in order for distance education programs to be successful, students really need continual communication with their instructors. And so we have to really be not just physically present. Certainly Walden, we have KPIs that we have to meet where we're in the classroom a certain number of days and all of that. So students need that to know that their faculty is present, but they need communication. They need more than just what's required. And many first-time distance learners have high anxiety and tend to be less engaged automatically. And so what that says to me is that if I know in the class cafe that a student says, "Hey, this is my first online course," that's a red flag for me to really want to do everything that I can to reach out to that student, so that, because in knowing that they're anxious and that they are going to have a tendency to be less engaged. And we also need to pay attention to students' underlying needs, whether those are emotional or whatever those needs may be, but we need to pay attention to their needs in order to increase their level of emotional engagement. And that can be hard to do, because when you think about how burdened we often feel as instructors, you know, Nina mentioned the perceptions that we have sometimes, like, "Did you grade my paper?" That if we're stressed, because whether it's because of work stress or home stress or a combination of factors, we feel burdened, and that's going to impact our ability to be connected to our students. So it's easy sometimes to say, "Oh, yes, we need to be present for our students," but sometimes that can be particularly challenging, especially if we aren't engaging in self-care, because we can become impaired, and when we become impaired, we're less effective in delivering instruction, but less effective in our connections with students.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about how we positively impact student engagement, building on what Ruth just said, but I also want to tell you I'm preaching to the choir. I think we all know what's included on this slide and actually the next one, that we are to build upon students' strengths, just like Master Yoda there. We want to teach our students that effort will improve results, therefore encouraging and motivating them to put forth more effort. And of course we require and try to engage students by letting them know that there is proactive support from the institution. And I hope you appreciate the irony of Darth Vader and the stormtroopers behind him, because sometimes it doesn't feel like proactive support from the institution. Sometimes it feels quite the opposite to students. But this is what we know we're supposed to do. Ruth, next slide, please. We're supposed to get to know our students. You know, it's difficult at a distance if you're not feeling connected, as I think several of you even identified that being a challenge. It's important to understand what they really need and aspire to. The other day I intervened on a little snafu that was going on between one faculty and the student, and I just asked for a phone call. Sometimes that really clarifies things. And in the phone call, the student, you know, revealed that She actually doesn't have internet at home. She's a single mother of 5 children, and she just recently lost her job, but that she can, when she can afford it or can arrange it, get some child care and sneak off to the library where there is internet. Boy, that makes a big difference, and to realize the drive that this woman must have to, in spite of those obstacles, still be a Walden student really is a way for us to understand her need and her aspiration, and it really brought the faculty and student together much better. We obviously need to motivate them to participate, not just do what they have to do, but to participate academically and professionally. All the while, we must acknowledge and be really empathic to the challenges in the students' lives. The person on the left, by the way, has an edge on things because she's Betazoid and she has a natural gene for empathy, but that's not part of the Walden equipment. So we're going to talk a little bit about how self-care can help us be more empathic. Ruth?
Yes, and like Nina said, that certainly all of these factors come to play, that we have a big responsibility to not just enforce the quote-unquote rules where students have to complete their assignments by day 5 and by day 7, but we really do want to try to motivate them to give it their all and to be fully present, and that can feel like a burden sometimes, especially like I mentioned before, if you've got stress in your life from whatever source, that it becomes difficult to then meet your own obligations for your position. I must be in my classroom, I must attend X number of meetings, I must meet these deadlines. That becomes challenging, but then on top of those responsibilities, it's having to manage a lot of different student needs coming at you. That can be overwhelming, and that's what brings us to self-care. One of the things that when Nina and I were putting this presentation together that we found was a lot of people have different ideas of what self-care is. And certainly we're going to be talking about Pilates and Tai Chi and yoga, but there are lots of different ways to engage in self-care. We're just sharing with you some things that work for us. But we tried to come up with a definition of self-care just so we could all be on the same page. And we look at self-care as being purposeful activities which integrate physical, psychological, and spiritual dimensions to ideally improve well-being, optimize resilience, and increase engagement with others. And so we're going to talk about that and how to use different exercises to help relieve some of the stressful emotions that can often burden us as online instructors. Occupational strain has been correlated in the literature with lower productivity and decreased interactions with students. So the more stress we feel from our departments and from our institution, it certainly is going to result in lower productivity and affect our interactions with the students. And so that's one of the things that I mentioned earlier, feeling very passionate about wellness, is a wellness perspective. Really, I look at it as a way of a preventive measure instead of preventing a forest fire instead of putting out a forest fire. And a lot of times when you think about issues with our students, I'm sure we've all had challenging students, whether it was someone who challenged our authority in the classroom or maybe was disrespectful via email, that sometimes if we can identify those students who might have certain needs that aren't being met, maybe it's an anxious student that's a first-time distance learner, maybe it's a student like Nina's who doesn't have internet access and has some personal challenges. If we can take care of ourselves and we can be more in tune to our student needs, we might be able to identify some of those potential fires that could happen instead of having to put out the fire or troubleshoot in terms of the crisis. And the other thing is that we won't feel as overwhelmed when we do. I mean, there are obviously sometimes where the fires break out and we can't control that. That sometimes student challenges are going to happen no matter what preventive steps that you take. But when those things happen, by engaging in self-care, you're less likely to feel overwhelmed, and that you can kind of let some of that burden and stress go so that you don't carry it with you. So the other thing is and I saw a lot about this in the literature, is that how it made me really start to think about that land-based universities have wellness centers to encourage wellness and self-care. I mean, some universities do incentive programs and things like that to get you to use their wellness facilities. And then I started thinking about online educators, that we hope that we make time during the day to whether it's to go to the gym or go to a yoga class. But I think several of you mentioned in the questions section that balancing your life demands can be challenging and prevent that from happening. I know for me, sometimes when I sit down to work on whether it's grading or something, I can look up and 3 hours have gone by and it seems like it's been 20 minutes. And so if that was my window to engage in self-care, I just missed my window for the day of self-care. So online educators are particularly challenged because we don't have, we don't see our colleagues face to face every day. That it's not like I see Nina face to face after the faculty meeting on Monday and she says, hey, let's go to yoga or let's go for a run. So we have to be really self-motivated to get to exercise self-care. And self-care does lead to better engagement. It's been shown to develop and help maintain optimism, self-efficacy, one's ability to listen, and convey empathy. And so when you think about that, sometimes when I give workshops on self-care, people think, oh, well, you mean I'm going to do these exercises and that's going to just make me a better listener? And my response is yes, that it really will help you. It's amazing at how much stress can be, how much you can let go of stress when you actually participate in some of these activities. So they really do work. And these are necessary factors to stay engaged with students and colleagues, and I can't say that enough, that for me, and I think for Walden and their mission, what we want as faculty is our instructors who not just do what's required, but who really go above and beyond and the expectations and really, really connect with students. That's what Walden is about. So these things, in looking at it that way, self-care, it's like insurance. We're investing in ourselves. And we're also serving as role models to our students. In teaching for a counseling program especially, we know that counselors as well as our counseling students are at higher rates of burnout, and vicarious trauma and compassion fatigue. So that it's really important that they learn very early in their careers the importance of self-care. I see students in practicum and internship who are managing family demands. They're working another job. They're working at their field placement site and managing their classroom component, and they're totally overwhelmed and stressed. But if they don't figure out how to manage this now, they are more likely to become impaired professionals. So we want to be role models to our students, that if we can practice self-care, it's not just talking the talk, it's actually walking the walk.
So we're going to be presenting in just a couple minutes now, so start warming yourself up. 3 different strategies of self-care that work for us. But the other thing that we're going to be presenting here, although certainly I do go to a swimming pool and swim for half an hour sometimes, are strategies that you can use at your desk without really interrupting your flow. So you don't have to leave the room. Sometimes if you have other people in the house and they see that you're out and about, they have other demands they want to make of you. But these are some things that you can do at your desk. And to be kind of simplistic about it, yoga in general increases the sense of optimism. Pilates empowers you. And Tai Chi develops listening ability, although I will make this comment, your ears will not grow. So don't worry about that. Next slide, Ruth. This is empirical evidence. This is me, Nina, before and after yoga at my desk. And you're going to be participating in the very same activities that turned me from sepia to colors. So next slide. First of all, just a little comment about yoga, and again, I'm being very simplistic here, but it yokes the mind and the body. My teacher is often fond of saying that he was taught that when we start either a session or even the practice of yoga in our lives, we start out with our minds kind of scattered and our bodies in one stiff block, and that as we do it, our minds become much more unified and centralized, and then our bodies become able to be intelligent and move more naturally and smoothly. In general, yoga has been shown through the literature to relieve anxiety, to lighten depression, and to reduce anger and tension. So if you will join me, with the next slide, we'll show you what we want you to do. This is just a series of photographs. So the first thing I want you to do is you have a chair that has a back that's really good. If you don't, maybe you can go and grab one. Is I'd like you to sit sideways on your chair with your left side along the back of the chair. And as you sit sideways, I want you to scooch forward just a little bit and make sure that your knees are lined up with one another so that there's not one knee sticking out further than the other. Your feet are flat on the floor, and so your rear end is sitting firmly on your seat, and you're going to raise your arms up over your head. Now, as you do this, you're giving yourself a very slight back traction. And I want you to reach with the middle finger, because that's the longest finger that we have, and reach up for the ceiling. Now, it doesn't matter so much if your hands are straight up or a little bit forward. I want you to do this where you can do it, and if you've been sitting here too long, you may find that you're not going to be as good at it straightening your arms or getting your arms up until you've been allowing yourself to do it. So reaching up, and now I want you to take your left arm and kind of reach for the middle of the back of the chair and grasp the top of the chair. Put your right arm, and you'll see this in the picture, grasp the seat of the chair right in back of your spine. And I want you to take a deep breath in and make your body get taller. Holding that breath, I want you to start to turn yourself from the very lowest vertebra just slightly, comfortably, and then let your breath go, and you'll be able to twist a little bit more. Take another breath in, you'll get tall, and exhale and twist a little bit more. All twists start with your lowest vertebra and slowly creep up until the last thing you turn is your neck. And breathe in and out one final time. And then release the grip on the back of the chair and the back of the seat, and bring your hands up with palms facing each other as you started. And then bring your hands down. I'd like you to get up from your seat and actually turn around and have your right side, because you have to do this on two sides, guys, the right side facing or along the side of the back of the chair. And once again, raise your arms up over your head, reaching up for the ceiling with your middle finger. Feel the traction in your back. Feel your lower back kind of plug into place so that your back is nice and straight. And then turning slightly, grasp the back of the chair with your right hand. Grasp the seat of the chair behind your own back with your left. Inhale and extend yourself up. Let your breath go and start to twist. Inhale again. And release and twist. And one more breath in and out. And very slowly and carefully release the pressure of your hands. Turn your body back to where it started. Raise your arms over your head, reaching up, palms facing one another, and then hands down. By the way, anytime we do a twist in yoga, the yogic principle is that we are actually twisting out our frustration and anger. So any kind of twist can help with frustration and anger. You can try that next time you feel a little frustrated. Next set of slides, Ruth. I'd like you to stand up and face the seat of your chair, as you see I do in this picture. Put your feet so that your toes are parallel and pointing straight. I mean, the outside edges of your feet are parallel and your toes are pointing at the chair. I want you to do something a little odd, if you can do this mentally. I want you to rotate your upper thighs in towards one another. Now, you're really not going to see any change, but you'll feel a change in your lower back because it opens and spreads the sacral area of your lower back. Now, you can certainly do this by putting your hands on the floor, but you've been sitting on a chair for a while, so very gently reach over just as far as you need to spread your palms really wide, spread your fingers apart, and place your hands on the seat of the chair. Now rotate your elbows so that they point at your body. This automatically opens your chest as well as bends you forward. Now I want you to just keep your head in line with your neck, just very comfortably, and I want you to spread your toes and lift them and feel what it feels like to stretch all of the muscles in the fascia on the back of your legs and the front of your legs. And then you can stand up. And this that you've just done is a forward bend. Generally, forward bends are done in yoga for the relief of anxiety. And you can actually bend forward even more if you are in the position that you feel comfortable enough to do that. And then we have one more yoga activity for you. And I want you to actually turn your chair around so that the back of the chair is closest to you, and you turn your back to the back of the chair. Turn your hands so that you can grip the back of the chair as you see I've done in the photo. And you're going to straighten your arms, keep your shoulders away from your ears, and incline your body backwards. So this is a very gentle, supported back bend. Back bends open up the chest area. Let the heart of you be exposed and open. And this directly counteracts what happens to our posture when we're sitting at computers. Hold it for a few seconds. Feel what happens as you breathe in, and then release that breath. And then relax. Pull away, release your grip off the chair, stand up straight, and I will give you over to Ruth. Thanks.
Thank you, Nina. I already feel much better. So,
good.
We're going to do a couple of Pilates exercises as well. And Pilates really is empowering because you're targeting core abdominal muscles. So we're strengthening the core. And when you strengthen core, that's going to help improve your posture. I think several of you in the questions area mentioned your posture and some of the somatic complaints that you have as a result of whether it's poor posture or just from sitting at the computer. So Pilates is certainly a way to help with that. One of the things that got me into Pilates was that when I get stressed, my symptoms of stress manifest in somatic symptoms like migraines, headaches, backaches, neck aches, and so and I'm also prone to have what I call the turtle head, where my chin sticks out and my neck pokes out because from being on the computer so much. And so I got interested in Pilates because it was a great way to naturally just improve posture and to become more empowered. And it does also increase self-efficacy. So what we're going to do is an exercise called the spine stretch. I'm going to walk you through some of this and then we'll watch a clip. But when you look at this picture first, notice that I have one hand on my stomach and one hand on my lower back. You do not have to place your hands there. What I have my hands there is to demonstrate that your back should be straight. So where my hand is, think about your back being up against an imaginary brick wall. So when we do this exercise, every time we come back to the seated to our straight back position, you want your back to be straight as if you're connecting one vertebrae at a time to that imaginary brick wall. Your legs should be that's actually a very wide chair that I was sitting in, so kind of judge where you are. Generally, if you've got an average sized chair, your legs are about the width apart of your chair, or a little bit around shoulder width apart, a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. Some of these Pilates clips will make the exercises or the execution of the exercise may seem a little fast. With Pilates, you can go at your own pace, so you can do this exercise as slowly as you need to. Once you feel comfortable in the fluidity of the movement, you can increase the pace of that. So don't feel that you have to, when you do this exercise every time, keep up with a certain pace. So let's look at the clip. So you're going to exhale as though you have an imaginary beach ball. Reach over the ball and come up. Exhale over your imaginary beach ball. Come up one vertebrae at a time. So think as you exhale, letting go of your stress, coming up, tightening your core. Exhale, pull your navel into your spine as you come up. Okay. Let's see. Trying to exit out of this, I'm sorry. Okay. Here we go. Okay. For our next activity, we're going to do a Pilates exercise called the saw. This is going to be similar to what we just did, but a little variation. So again, you want your back to be straight. You've got that imaginary brick wall. Your tummy is tight and your core is engaged. So think about your navel, your belly button being pulled in towards your spine, and really contract the lower abdominals as you do this exercise. Your arms are out to the side and fully extended, and think about somebody pulling you in each direction. Someone has one arm and someone has the other arm. We certainly know as online educators we get pulled in different directions. So your arms are being lengthened and the muscles are being elongated. So what we're going to do as we do this exercise, we're going to twist and rotate and then reach outward, but we're again coming back to this straight back position with our core abdominals engaged. So we're going to turn and reach forward, come back, contract the abdominals, twist and reach, exhale, inhale, twist, exhale and reach, letting go of your stress, keeping that back straight. When you come back to the center position, twist through the spine, exhale and reach forward, come back up and keep repeating, exhale, inhale, core is tight, reach, and come. Just get into the natural flow of the exercise. Okay. Okay, and Nina's going to walk you through some Tai Chi exercises.
You know, Ruth, I wanted to say you made a little joke there about feeling pulled in two directions, as we do oftentimes working for Walden, but you didn't recognize the irony of your saying sometimes having your back against a brick wall. So,
that too.
So we're just using our challenges for our benefit. We'll strengthen ourselves. Now, Tai Chi is something that has been practiced by a lot of people for health reasons. And I don't know if most people who observe those folks in parks in large cities who are doing Tai Chi also recognize that there are not only physical but mental health benefits as well. And one of the interesting things that I found in the literature is that there is a documented sense of psychosocial connection to others when they have taught Tai Chi specifically to elderly people, a geriatric population in nursing homes, that they reported afterwards a better sense of connection to others. And this is something that I have an abiding interest in because I've done Tai Chi and push hands for many years, and I have introduced it to many of my couple clients who are trying to improve or enhance their relationships as an activity to engage in instead of or before arguing. So as you learn this, you might even try it that way as well. So may I have the next slide? This is going to involve you standing up, because I'm going to show you and have you participate with me in a mini Tai Chi form. So when we practice Tai Chi, sometimes we do so with other people and sometimes we do so alone. And this mini form is very simple to follow, so Ruth's going to pull this up on YouTube. And by the way, you all can get a copy of this whole PowerPoint and therefore have access to these YouTube clips should you want to. And I want you to follow along. I'm actually moving in this. This is actually live because we're going to move very slowly. So you're standing up straight and you're shifting your weight onto your left foot and putting your right toes down one at a time. Your back is nice and straight, but you're relaxed and straight. And now your hands are being pulled in front of you as though there's an invisible string attached to your wrists. When they get to just about shoulder level, your hands will stretch out and your arms will go down towards the floor like a magnet is pulling them. The magnet's called gravity. And your knees are bending. Pull your hands back towards your hips, and then you're going to put all your weight onto your left leg, reach out towards the left side, turn your palms up, and as you lift both arms towards the ceiling and start to pull them towards one another, you also pull your feet back together, and then bending your knees, pulling your elbows down towards the floor, stretching your elbows apart when they're about throat level, and then straightening your knees as you gaze down, and then vertebra by vertebra, lift your head and stand. And I'm going to do this again, turn to the side, so you're going to do it with me again. So standing straight, keeping your head on top of your heels, extend your left foot out to the side, and then your hands are going to be pulled up in front of you as though with that invisible string. You might even feel a nice traction in your back as you do this. Extend your fingers forward as though you're touching the wall in front of you. Bend your knees and pull your thumbs back up towards your hips without raising your shoulders. Then relax your hands down to the sides, reach out to the right, turn your palms up, raising your hands over your head as they center and crisscross. Put your feet together, and now you're balanced. Pulling your hands down, elbows reaching down for the floor until your hands get to about throat level. Your elbows go out to the sides, knees are bent, and then as you stand, slowly straightening your legs, pushing those hands down, you come to standing and extend your spine. Now that's the mini form, and that's the solo practice. The next thing that we're going to engage in is called sticking hands. And sticking hands usually requires a partner. So I don't know if any of you in the audience, in the listening audience, are going to be able to pull a partner in at this point. So we're going to do it two different ways. You're going to see how it looks when a partner engages, and then you're going to do this activity with me virtually in the second clip. So first we're going to watch the first YouTube, and you're going to see my partner and I showing you what sticking hands appears like when two people experience it, and I really encourage you to try this at home. So you're standing opposite one another, and you're touching the backs of one hand, both in this case the right hand at this moment, and you both start to move. There's no leader, there's no follower, but your hands have to stay connected. And if you did this with your eyes closed, you'd actually find that you can be connected even better. And now my partner and I are showing you what it looks like with both hands connected, backs of the hands touching, and then sometimes it's the other part of the hands. The hands do not have, the movements are not pre-arranged, and actually they don't always happen to be in the same direction. And you just practice feeling where your partner's going and they feel where you're going. And you just keep following with a very gentle, soft touch. And then when you're done, you just smile at each other, obviously. Okay. And then the next clip, I would like you to stand and face me, which is me and the computer in a minute on YouTube. And this is actually you pretending that your hands are touching mine. So follow without thinking. You do not know where I'm going. You're just going to have to pretend that your hands are attached to mine. Breathe softly. Keep your muscles relaxed. I'm moving very pixelated and jerky because of the technology, but you want to move as smoothly as you can, as organically as you can. And follow the best you can, even though I'm using two hands. For a moment, forget yourself, lose your edges, lose your ego, and we stop. Okay, so now you've engaged in both solo exercise, which is a form of Tai Chi, and sticking hands. You've also practiced a little bit of chair yoga, some Pilates that you can do right there in front of your computer. Even if you're stressed and you don't think you have time to go to the gym, you can do these things. But we're wondering, Ruth and I, which of these techniques, if any, do you feel are most useful for you? In what ways? What was your experience just now? So if you would please type your comments in the questions area. We will be able to see them. Maybe that some of you have forgotten where your computer is. You're so calm and peaceful right now.
They're just so relaxed, Nina.
Right.
Oh, here we go.
So starting to see some questions or some comments.
So Kayla is saying that she doesn't know much about Pilates or Tai Chi, but the stretching in the shoulders and back from the yoga postures was the most physically helpful to her. Kevin's saying he has a lot of back pain, and the yoga felt like it loosened it a bit. And I just have to tell you that I cannot tell you how useful yoga is for keeping my back from hurting. The Tai Chi just felt better. That's interesting. You already do some meditation. This seems to be somewhat familiar to you, but the Tai Chi added something new because of, I'm guessing, Krista, because of the interactive effect. And David said it's hard to pick which one, but he listens to yoga podcasts at home. What a wonderful idea, so that you don't need to leave to go to the gym, and they're only about 20 minutes long, so it's very easy to fit one in during the day. Well, that's a great suggestion. I'm scanning through the questions to see if there are other. Krista was saying that the interactive and the fluid movement of yoga, of the Tai Chi, I believe, is what felt good to her and was helpful. And that it was just nice. That's good. I think it's nice too. I think that's why we like doing this webinar, don't we, Ruth?
Right. Well, and I see that David made a comment about that all of the exercises would help him breathe deeply. And, you know, it's interesting, David, that you say that, because I agree that sometimes I get so wrapped up with what's in my head that I tend to get really hyper and speedy, and that I forget to slow down and breathe. And so particularly, I think the Tai Chi exercises take me a little bit out of my element, a little out of my comfort zone, but they really force me sometimes to kind of slow down. And the first time that I did the sticky hands exercise with Nina at our faculty meeting, it felt strange for me at first because I didn't feel like I was in control, and that felt very out of control. But once I allowed myself to just breathe and relax, I could feel physically a difference in my body. So I think someone else had mentioned that the Tai Chi, or adding something different, can give you maybe a new perspective, or a new something, you know, gives you something else, you know, different perspective or whatever. So I certainly agree.
It looks like Amy is referring to the fact that she felt regenerated. I love that word, regenerated, to finish the few tasks that she has for the day. And, you know, so many times when I approach other people and say, you know, it'd probably be good for you to do some activity, the response is, I'm too tired. And the regenerative effect, the restorative effect of even just a few minutes of simple activity, such as what we just did, is really underestimated by folks when they're really weary. And so it really does regenerate us. I think it regenerates and rejuvenates in a lot of ways. In fact, when I first started learning yoga, I just entered menopause, and or I thought so. And they were telling me that when you start doing yoga that you become 10 years younger. And unfortunately, the menopause stopped happening. I was like, wait a minute, stop. I don't want to go back there. But anyhow, it can make you feel younger even if it doesn't actually make that happen. So I don't see any other new comments. I'm trying to look through here. Ruth, is there anything else that you would like to bring up? I love your story about the 90-year-old man. I wish you.
Oh, yes, I actually taught on Fridays at 1 o'clock. I teach a senior citizens fitness class, and we do a little bit of everything. But I do a lot of Pilates exercises with them, and some of them do the exercises on the floor. Some of them are limited to chairs because they can't go to the floor. But I have a gentleman that's in class that's 90 that does these exercises in a chair. And it's interesting because it's a very it's a large class, but the class is offered on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And Monday and Wednesday is a different instructor, and I teach on Friday. But a lot of the individuals who come on Monday and Wednesday take Friday off. So it's a smaller group on Friday than what's there on Monday, Wednesday. But it's interesting because I've seen, I mentioned the cohesion with the group that we felt at our residencies. I see this cohesion with my Friday group, that they're the Friday bunch, and I'm the one that does the Pilates exercises. And so their confidence has increased, not to mention the physical benefits, that they're more flexible, that they're getting stronger. Some of them are really cute and come in and they talk about how they had to get new pants, or that they had to get a belt because their pants are getting loose in the waistline. But it really is empowering for them. And when you can see a 90-year-old man do the exercises and feel empowered, I mean, that really stays with you. So, and you know, Nina brought up some great points about how people say, oh, I'm too tired to do this exercise, or these exercises, or any exercise, and that it can be rejuvenating. And one thing that I would just add to that is that all of these exercises that we demonstrated really hit, you know, total body, from hamstrings to glutes to, you know, quadriceps to core, abdominal muscles, arms, shoulders, all of those things. And so in just that short period of time, we hit some major muscle groups, and which can really, really physiologically reduce our stress. So.
You know, one of the things that you mentioned earlier, Ruth, is also worth highlighting, and that is that oftentimes when we're doing something that we've never done before, such as these activities, and I have to say, David, that most of the people that I know have never done Tai Chi and never done push hands, and they're asked to touch another human being in a very odd and unusual way, and at first they feel really out of their element. Usually are very happy at the end and feel connected to that person. But it really is a parallel to what our students are often experiencing. So sometimes taking up a new activity, doing something that's a little unusual or unique, can help us realize in a very deep sense what our students, many of whom are engaging in academic activities that are unusual and in some ways intimidating. I think that that is a good thing. It kind of keeps us humble, and it helps us be a little bit more empathic in that sense as well. So there's a lot of benefit to even searching for new things in all of the areas of wellness that you might like. But certainly if any of you are interested in following up on some of this, you certainly can find, as I think Amy has said, online podcasts, TV shows, CDs, DVDs that will help you or maybe even guide you through any of these kinds of activities that you can engage in. You could also, and I've done this, you could Skype with other people and engage in activities through Skyping and actually never leave your room. I don't know that that's something I'd recommend, but it can happen.
Nina, I was just going to say that it looks like we have a David has a hand raised. David, do we want to unmute the line for him to ask it, or to encourage him to ask it in the comments box?
We can unmute him. David, do you want to go ahead and share your thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you folks for sharing these ideas. At the beginning, I was thinking about my strategy. If you've noticed at residency or faculty meeting, I'm always early before the breakfast on the treadmill walking, and I started doing that by reading dissertations and papers and while I was walking slow uphill. But it ended up one day that I tried to prop my laptop up, and that's how I do some of my Walden work on a treadmill where I'm walking, and there's been some research about that. But you know, I've encountered a lot of gastrointestinal results of stress, and I find that doing that and getting outside for a walk with the dog helps. But I haven't really thought much about how easy it would be to just step away from your desk and do these simple activities right without leaving the house. It's just brilliant. So thanks again.
Thank you, David.
No, thank you. That's a great idea, a great reminder. Are there other hands raised?
I'm just taking a look. Doesn't look like it.
Do not.
Okay, because we are kind of getting close to the end. I really appreciated, 11 people, I think, or almost 11 people really participating on a Friday. I hope this does become a segue for you to start your weekend, not to go back and get some more eye strain and back strain, but at least you have a way to fix it if you do.
Yes, and I'd like to also just add to that to thank you all for coming. I know that Friday, it's for me, thinking of a webinar on Friday, if I wasn't leaving, would be hard to be motivated sometimes to attend. So I think not only do I thank you for participating, but also your enthusiasm and your engagement in the presentation.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you both, Nina and Ruth, for presenting this. Looks like some kudos are coming through the questions area, so thank you, everyone, for your feedback. You can provide additional feedback in more detail by using the link in the questions area to the feedback survey. I would love to get your thoughts on this, so we can consider that as we offer other programs at the university. So thank you again, Nina and Ruth, for leading this, and thank you, everyone, for your great participation today. If you haven't had a chance to look at our CFE newsletter that came out via email earlier this week, and it has a link to our webinar schedule for October, so we look forward to seeing you at future webinars that are based on faculty meeting breakout sessions that were recently offered and will be led by your colleagues at the university. So thanks again, everyone. Hope that this sets you up for a good toward the end of the day on Friday, or for those of us who are more in the West, a midday break. And thank you again, Nina and Ruth, for leading the session today.
It was fun. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you all.
Have a great weekend.
Have a great weekend.
Goodbye for now, everyone. This will end our webinar.